Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Gauranitai, 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 Jaya Gauranitai. Jaya Radha Madhava, Radha Madhava Radhe. Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Prabhupada, Prabhupada. Jaya Guru Deva, Guru Deva, Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva. Jaya Jaya Guru Dev, Guru Dev, Guru Dev, Jaya Jaya Guru Dev. Jayo Vishnu Bhat Paramhamsa Pravacharya Stota Srimad Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai. ISKCON Founders A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. BBT Founder Acharya His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Primshika Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Radha Kun Shama Kun Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Shri Navdev Dham Ki Jai. Shri Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Ganga Mai Ki Jai. Yamuna Mai Ki Jai. Tulsi Devi Ki Jai. Bhakti Vrinda Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai. Sankirtan Yaga Ki Jai. Burhad Murdanga Ki Jai. Gaura Pramanande Hari Hari Vo. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to Shri Shri Guru and Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pascharya Deshatarine. Om Gyana Timirantasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chaksuram Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manopistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadhamayam Dadati Swapadam Tikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvitam Savadvitam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavindeshware Vishabhanu Sute Deve Pranamami Hare Priye Vancha Kalpata Rupyascha Kripa Sindhubhye Vacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mukham karoti vachalam pangum langayate kirim yat kripatamaham bande Shri Gurum dinataranam paramananda madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram Harihi Om Tat Sat Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Narayana Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswati Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayet. Hare Krishna, welcome everyone to participate in today's ecstatic study of Srimad Bhagavatam. Haribo, thank you. Today we are going to read Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 4. The title is The Appearance of Sri Narada. And we are going to read Shloka 14. So please read after me. By the way, please wholeheartedly to read all these shlokas. Now it's during Bhishma Panchak time, so we can get 1,000 times the benefits. And also in the glories of Srimad Bhagavatam, it is mentioned even if you read one shloka or even half shloka or even one line or even one syllable, you can get the benefit of donating like thousands of cows. So we nicely read, pay attention, and we get all the benefits we can get. Sutta vacha Dvapare samanuprapte Tritiye yoga paryaye Jata parasharat yogi Vasavyam kalaya hari Sutta vacha Dvapare samanuprapte Tritiye yoga paryaye Jata parasharat yogi Vasavyam kalaya hari Sutta vacha Dvapare samanuprapte Tritiye yoga paryaye Jata parasharat yogi Vasavyam kalaya hari. So please Anyone can lead? Sutta Vacha Dvapare Samanu Prapte Tritiye Yoga Paryaye Jata Parasarat Yoge Vasavyam Kalaya Hari. Sutta Vacha Dvapare Samanu Prapte Tritiye Yoga Paryaye Jata Parasharat Yogi Vasavyam Kalaya Hari. Sutta Vacha Prapare Samanu Prapte Tritiye Yoga Paryaye Jata Parasharat Yogi Vasavyam Kalaya Hari. Mataji's. Sutta Vacha Dvapare Samanu Prapte Tritiye Yoga Paryaye Jatara Prasad Yogi Vasavyam Kalaya Hari. Sutta Vacha Dvapare Samanu Prapte Tritiye Yoga Paryaye Jata Parasharat Yogi Vasavyam Kalaya Hari. Very good. Okay, word for word. Sutta Sutta Goswami Vacha said, Dvapare in the second millennium, Samanu Prapte on the advent of Tritiye third Yoga millennium, Paryaye in the place of Jataha was begotten, Parasharat by Parashara, Yogi the great sage, Vasavyam in the womb of the daughter of Vasu, Kalaya in the plenary portion, Harihi of the personality of Godhead. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation. Sutta Goswami said, when the second millennium overlapped the third, the great sage Vyasadeva was born to Parashara in the womb of Satyavati, the daughter of Vasu. Please repeat after me. Sutta Goswami said, when the second millennium overlapped the third, the great sage Vyasadeva was born to Parashara in the womb of Satyavati, the daughter of Vasu. Srila Prabhupada's purport. There is a chronological order of the four millenniums, namely Satya, Dwapara, Treta, and Kali. But sometimes there is overlapping. During the regime of Vaivasvata Manu, there was an overlapping of the 28th round of the four millenniums, and the third millennium appeared prior to the second. In that particular millennium, Lord Sri Krishna also descends, and because of this, there was some particular alteration. The mother of the great sage was Satyavati, the daughter of the Vasu, fisherman, and the father was the great Parashara Muni. That is the history of Vyasadev's birth. Every millennium is divided into 3 periods, and each period is called a Sandhya. Vyasadeva appeared in the 3rd Sandhya of that particular age. So today we are going to first talk about some technical parts, and then we are going to discuss about the importance and authority of Srila Vyasadeva. We would also try to see a clear picture of the different important points, the flow of these chapters in this first canto. And then we talk about some personal application we can take back to our homes. So the technical part is very interesting because here in the translation mentioned when the 2nd millennium overlapped the 3rd. So we know in Lord Brahma's is one day, his whole day, whole night is 8.6 billion years, and the duration of his day is 4.3 billion years. And during this daytime, there would be 1,000 Chatur Yugas would pass. And during his one day, there were going to be 14 Manus. And in Srimad Bhagavatam, this part, the mentioning Vaivasvata Manu, in his previous identity, he is Satyavrata, the king who is talking with the Lord's Matsya incarnation. So each Manu during this 1,000 Chatur Yugas repetition, or we can say this is the 4 cycles of yogas, each Manu, he would reign like ruling for 72 different cycles. And then the incident happened here. It's the 28th cycle of Vaivasvata Manu. And in the purport we can see, Srila Prabhupada mentioned, there was an overlapping of the 28th round of the 4 millenniums. That means during the Vaivasvata Manu's ruling period, during the 28th cycle of this 4 different yogas, there is an overlapping between the 2nd and 3rd. So concerning this part, I wrote a letter to Banu Maharaj. I asked him to clarify on this point. So Banu Maharaj mentioned, actually, there are so many commentators on Srimad Bhagavatam and so many translators, but not everyone translate this part. They simply say the passing of the 3 yogas. Because in Jiva Goswami's Kramasandarbha, and this verse in the commentary is specially mentioned one word, pari, this is pariyarya. Let me see. Paryaye. Paryaye, according to the Sanskrit dictionary Amara Kosh, that means overlapping. So that means some part of the 3rd millennium, Tritiya Yoga, is overlapping the 3rd millennium, Dwapara Yoga. Then I had another doubt, because in the purport mentions the 3rd millennium appeared prior to the 2nd. So naturally one would have this doubt. Does that mean the 3rd millennium means the Treta Yoga completely jumped in front of the 2nd millennium means Dwapara Yoga? So I confirmed this point with Banu Maharaj, and he said, no, it is like the sandhi, like the conjunction, the connection part. First, there's the 2nd millennium, Dwapara Yoga. And then at the end of the Dwapara Yoga, there's a small portion overlapping with the 3rd millennium, Treta Yoga. So this incident happened during that time. And according to Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's commentary on this verse, he mentioned even in each yoga, like Dwapara Yoga itself, can be divided in 3 parts. Every yoga, either it be Satya Yoga, Dwapara Yoga, Treta Yoga, or Kali Yoga, each millennium can be divided into 3 parts. And the 3 parts, they have a junction, sandhya, like when we're chanting Gayatri mantra, every day we choose the sandhya part. And so the first part, this Sandhya Yoga contains about 10% of this whole millennium. And then there's the Yuga Rupa. Yuga Rupa, it occupies 80% of the whole millennium. And then the last part, Sandhya Amsha, means Sandhyamsha Rupa. That part contains the last 10% of this millennium. So this incident happened in the last 10% of Dwapara Yoga. When the Dwapara Yoga is overlapping the beginning of Treta Yoga, this happened. And also during this time, we can see it is mentioned, in the translation didn't mention, but in the Sanskrit it is mentioned that Kalaya means in the plenary portion, means Srila Vyasadeva, he is an incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that means we also know that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, when he appeared, he also appeared during this overlapping time, during Vaivasvata Manu's rule, and during his 28th cycle of yoga, and there's overlapping between the second millennium and the third millennium, and as the last part. So when the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he is descending onto the earth, and Srila Vyasadeva was also born. And actually concerning this part, I also asked Burijan Prabhu, because he had an elaborate commentary on the first 4 cantos of Srimad Bhagavatam, that book named Unveiling His Lotus Feet. So the first, second cantos are considered Lord Krishna's lotus feet. I also asked him, can he please give more elaboration or clarification on this part? And then Burijan Prabhu mentioned, he said, you just stick to the purport. He said, those technical parts, if didn't say, then you don't think too much, you just stick to the purports. So whatever it says, you already got whatever it says, and you just say whatever it says. So I hope this technical part is clear now. And then we see the flow of these contents of these chapters. We see the theme of this verse mentions the appearance of Srila Vyasadeva. And why here it is mentioned the appearance of Srila Vyasadeva? The chapter's name is the appearance of Sri Narada. Why? Then we have to trace back at the beginning of this chapter. At the beginning of this chapter, in the 3rd verse, Shaunaka Rishi, he's asking a number of questions to Sutta Goswami. And all the questions asked by Shaunaka Rishi to Sutta Goswami can be divided into 3 sets. The first set of the questions is concerning Srila Vyasadeva, because in the 3rd verse of this chapter mentions when and where this is taking place. Because we know the theme of the whole Bhagavatam, that is concerning the main character, Parikshit Maharaj. Because of him, the whole Srimad Bhagavatam got narrated, and we can have the benefit of listening to it. So in order to explain why this Srimad Bhagavatam appeared, and then the first set of questions asked by Shaunaka Rishi on behalf of all the sages in Naimisharanya forest to Sutta Goswami is about Srila Vyasadeva. Therefore here, now this is verse 14. After 11 verses, now starts to answer the first set of questions. And then the second set of questions asked by Shaunaka Rishi is concerning about Narada Muni. And then the third set of questions is concerning about Parikshit Maharaj and the events leading up to the listening, the narration and listening of the whole Srimad Bhagavatam. And about Srila Vyasadeva, how he appeared, how he's prepared to present this Srimad Bhagavatam. It contains in the first canto, chapter 4 to chapter 7. So now we get a picture very clear about the flow of these chapters and verses. Then we can discuss about the authority of Srila Vyasadeva. His authority, we can find so many proofs in the Tattva Sandarbha mentioned by Srila Jiva Goswami. And also here, we know that his father was Parashara Muni. Who is Parashara Muni? Srila Prabhupada often quotes one special term from Parashara Muni. That term was spoken by this great sage in the Sri Vishnu Purana, that is Bhagavan. We know at the beginning of Srimad Bhagavad Gita, even the title Bhagavad Gita means the Gita of the Bhagavan. And then in the first verse, Srila Prabhupada introduced this conception of Bhagavan, one who completely possesses 6 opulences. That person can be called as Bhagavan. Where this concept come from? It come from none other than Parashara Muni. And he is the original speaker of Sri Vishnu Purana. And in Sri Vishnu Purana, he revealed to us, he said, actually, Vyas is only a title. We know in every cycle of the 4 different ages, the 4 different millenniums, in every cycle, Sadurpa Yoga, and in every cycle, Sadurpa Yoga's last part, the conjunction with the Trita Yoga, there would be one Vyasadeva. And Parashara Muni himself, he is the 26th Vyasadeva during this Vaivasvata Manu's reign. So that is his position. And he mentioned in Sri Vishnu Purana, he said, then in the 28th cycle of these 4 yogas, there's going to be another Vyasadeva. That is his son. So he said his son, Krishna Dvaipayana Vyasadeva, he is the 28th Vyasadeva. And then he said this 28th Vyasadeva, he's going to divide the Vedas into 4 parts. And why this Vyasadeva, the name is Krishna Dvaipayana Vyasadeva, because he is Lord himself. He is the Supreme Lord himself's incarnation. That's why he is called Krishna. And he was born on an island. When Parashara Muni was trying to cross the river, and then like the boat woman is Satyavati, so that time they unioned and they gave birth to Srila Vyasadeva. So Vyasadeva was born on an island, and we know the island, the name is Dvipa. Like now we have Navadvipa, here's Navadvipa, the 9 islands. So Dvaipayana. So our Vyasadeva, he was born on an island. That's why his full name is Krishna Dvaipayana Vyasadeva. And we have to mention how he compiled all the Vedas. Otherwise, we cannot become humbled. And Srila Vyasadeva, actually all the Vedas are called Apaurushaya. Apaurushaya means authorless. Authorless means the author is not a human being. It's directly coming the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Narayan. And in this way, Srila Vyasadeva, he's simply in his meditation. He is seeing all the eternally existed revealed scriptures, and he carefully chosen the part and presented to all of us. Because especially starting from next verse, he's going to do Achman. He's sitting facing the rising sun, and he's meditating in his Badrik ashrams, kutir, and he would see the conditions of Kali Yuga. In Kali Yuga, people has very short memory. This is very, very like a main feature of the present people. And why they have very short memories? Because as the ages progresses, there's increase of the mode of passion and ignorance. And accompanied by this increase of the modes of passion and ignorance, there would be anxieties, and also there would be impatience. And with these 2 characteristics, these anxieties and impatience, then people's memories become lost. Therefore, Srila Vyasadeva, he feels it's necessary to write down everything. And whatever we see today is only a small portion. For example, all the 18 Puranas, we know Srimad Bhagavatam is also called Bhagavat Purana. It contains 18,000 verses. And if we include all the Puranas, that is about 40,000 verses. But how much in the heavenly planets? In the heavenly planets, all the Vedas, they contain 1 billion verses. We cannot even understand and study because the intelligence and the longevity are in proportion. We have very short life, so the things we can access is also limited. But in the heavenly planets, because they have very, very long duration of life, our 1 year is like their 1 day. Then they have much more vast access to the Vedic literatures. And then Srila Vyasadeva, he divided the whole Vedas into 4 parts. Why he divided the Vedas into 4 parts? This we can find the answer in Srimad Bhagavatam. In the 12th canto, chapter 6, verse 50, it gives us a very nice analogy. It compares that there's a rich man, he's so rich, he has a big piles of all kinds of jewelries. And among these jewelries, 4 kinds are completely mixed up together. He has diamond, he has rubies, he has emerald, and he has sapphires. So we understand we have a lot of clothes. When they're all mixed up, then it's time for us to dress up nicely. It takes a lot of time. And even in Panchatattva or Radha Madhava's jewelry room, there's some devotees, they need to go there regularly. They have to sort out the different colors of malas. Otherwise, it's not convenient for the pujaris to use. So in the Vedas, there are so many things, mantras and different knowledge mixed together. Ordinary people, they don't know how to use it, how to utilize it. So Vyasadeva, he used the original Yajurveda and he divided into 4 parts. These 4 parts correspondingly like diamond, ruby, emerald, and sapphire. So he divided the original Yajurveda into Rigveda, Samaveda, and Atharva Veda. And then, because we need further divisions, because people in this Kali Yuga becomes less and less intelligent, so we need to make subdivisions. So Srila Vyasadeva, after he divided the Vedas into 4 parts, and we understand that Yajurveda again divided into 100 parts. And then Rigveda is again divided into 21 parts. And Samaveda is again divided into 1,000 parts. And Atharva Veda is again divided into 9 branches. And among these branches, his followers further divided them into another 4 divisions. That is Samhitas, Brahmanas, Upanishads, and Aranyakas. And altogether there are 1,120 Samhitas. And there are 1,120 Brahmanas. And there are 1,120 Upanishads and 1,120 Aranyakas. And altogether, so all the Vedas, it contains 4,520 titles. But before people, if you want to become a Vedanugas, you want to become the follower of the Vedas, you have to study the 6 limbs called Vedangas, the 6 limbs. Not to mention these very, very complicated grammars, because actually the Veda Sanskrit is much, much more difficult than our present, the modern Sanskrit. But even the modern Sanskrit is so difficult to grasp. Even the numbers has 3 genders. You please think about how difficult is the Vedic Sanskrit, and also you have to have specific knowledge to chant the chandas. And not everyone can do this. So in the previous verse, in verse 13, also mentioned Sutta Goswami. Some parts of Vedas he doesn't know because about the chandas. Not only you have to know the 3 different tunes, it's not utilized in the ordinary Sanskrit. It's only utilized on reciting the Vedic Sanskrit. Not only you have to know it perfectly, you have to be born in the Brahmana's family. Then you can do it. That is not even possible. And also the last 2 parts of the 6 limbs of the Vedas is you have to be fully versed, like fully expert in astrology and astronomy. So please think about, in this age of Kali, where we can find such teachers to teach us this profound knowledge, and where we can find the students to learn everything. Therefore, Srila Vyasadeva, he did a very unique contribution under the instruction of his spiritual master, Srila Narada Muni. He consolidated the whole Vedas and he presented Srimad Bhagavatam to us. Actually, according to Narada Purana, there's one conversation mentioned in Narada Purana that Lord Shiva is talking with his wife Parvati. He said, it doesn't mean that the Vedas is anything lacking, but in this age we don't have the ability, the enough intelligence to understand. Therefore, we need something more easy, more simple, and more accessible, so the knowledge, this information won't be misunderstood. Because there is a decline of Vedic knowledge, and it is coming from the Varaha Purana. This is a summary given by Srila Baladevidya Bhushan, and he mentioned that once there's a great sage, Gautama Muni, and Gautama Rishi, he got a benediction that whatever he grows rice in his field would give abundant result. And then it happened, there's a severe drought. So all the neighboring countries are suffering, and all the brahmanas, they're starving. So Gautama Rishi invited all the brahmanas to his house, and is very happily to serve them, Vaishnava Seva. But then when the drought finished, Gautama Rishi doesn't give permission for the rishis to go, to leave. And then what to do? These rishis want to go home. So they created an illusion. They created an illusioned cow. And then Gautama Rishi, when he touched this cow, the cow fell dead. So the other brahmanas, the other rishis, they're pretending to be horrified. Oh my God, you killed a cow. We must leave this place. You have to do some attunement. So they all left. And Gautama Rishi, he performed all this, whatever prayastita needed. But then later on, he found out this is a trick by the other brahmanas. So he's very angry. He cursed all the other brahmanas. He said, now I curse all your brahmanas and all your colleagues will lose the knowledge of the Vedas. But then that is not the real reason. Srila Jiva Goswami mentioned that the real reason is at the ages is passing. The brahmanas, they lost their standard. Why they lost their standard? They lost their purity in character, and they are neglecting their social responsibilities. So in this way, the knowledge becomes like lost. But that is not the fault of the Vedas. Then we can understand Srila Vyasadeva, how his unique contribution in presenting the Srimad Bhagavatam to us. In the next chapter, his spiritual master Srila Narada Muni told him he should write something, directly glorify the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Nayad vachas chitra padam hari yasho jagat pavitram pragranita karhichit tad vayasam tirtam bushanti manasa nayatra hamsa niramanti ushikshayaha. That means the Supreme Personality of Godhead alone can sanctify the whole atmosphere of this universe. So if you describe something like mundane, that is like unto a pilgrimage of the crows. And the saintly persons, because their abode is in the transcendental platform, they won't take any pleasure here. Therefore, you must write something directly propounds the service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. You must write something that help the people in Kali Yuga to establish their relationship to the Lord. So Srila Vyasadeva, by presenting this Srimad Bhagavatam, he gave us this sambandha, this vachaka sambandha. We have to establish our relationship with Srimad Bhagavatam. Then we can establish our relationship to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, because Bhagavatam and Krishna are non-different. Therefore, in the first canto, in the first chapter, in the second verse, it is mentioned that Dharma projita kaitavatro, paramo nirsaramam sadam, vidyam vastavatram, vastu shivadam, tapatrayo mulanam, Srimad Bhagavate Mahamuni krite, kingva parai ishvara, sadyo radya varutyatra, kurtibi shushubi stakshanat. Important words, shushubi, by cultivation. By cultivation, then what? Simply by cultivation this knowledge. You regularly attend Srimad Bhagavatam class, you hear submissively. Then in the last part of the purport, Srila Prabhupada said, simply by agreeing of receiving this message, simply by agreeing, you just agree, you agree to receive this message, then you can establish your relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, would be established inside your heart. This is very, very unique contribution of Srila Vyasadeva. And then we can see what Srila Prabhupada give us. Srila Prabhupada, he strenuously, he's working day and night. He presented the commentary, Bhakti Vedanta purport, and he gave to us. Like 9 days ago, it was Srila Prabhupada's Tirubhav Mahotsav. We are observing Srila Prabhupada's disappearance day, and on that evening, His Holiness Jayapataka Swami Guru Maharaj, he gives a special class on the memories of Srila Prabhupada. When he's talking this part, he was crying. He said, I was serving him in the Lotus building, and he would sometimes call me any time of the day. So I personally saw like 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning, he was still translating and commenting Srimad Bhagavatam. At this point, Maharaj, he cannot control himself but crying. Yes. And then he apologized to the audience. He said, I'm sorry, when I'm talking about Srila Prabhupada, I become emotional. How great is the sacrifice, to sacrifice your sleeping. Sometimes I need to study, sometimes too much services. Only occasionally I skip some sleeping. Then I feel like dying. But then how come we understand that Srila Prabhupada, he sacrificed so much for us, not only for days, for months, but for years. He sacrificed his sleeping, his life, his blood, his energy in presenting this Srimad Bhagavatam to us. Therefore, Srila Prabhupada, he's called the founder Acharya of International Society of Krishna Consciousness. Who can become a founder Acharya? When we are talking about a Sampradaya Acharya, he must be uniquely qualified, and especially in the schools of transcendental spiritualists, especially in India, you have to be qualified. You have to give special comments on some special parts of the knowledge. Prasthanatrayi. So that specific term is referring to the theological epistemology of the philosophies. And especially you have to give comments on 3 parts. That is, you have to give some comments on Nyaya parts. And Nyaya, it's represented by Vedanta Sutra. And also you have to give comments on the Shrutis. Shrutis is represented by the Upanishads and also the Vedic mantras. And you also have to be qualified to give commentaries on the Smritis. Smritis mainly refers to Bhagavad Gita and Mahabharata, Ramayana, as well as the Puranas, Itihasas, the like 5th Vedas. And some people may be saying that, Srila Prabhupada didn't give comments, but actually Srila Prabhupada, he commented on all these 3 categories of theological epistemology because he commented. He also wrote some part of the Vedanta Sutra commentary. If you search in the folio, you can find. And also he commented all the Goswamis of Vrindavan. He nicely presented a summary study of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. He commented on the Upanishads. And also, most importantly, he gave us the comments of Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita, and also Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. So now we can try to understand the position of Srila Prabhupada. In following the previous Acharya, Srila Vyasadeva, and in the preface of Srimad Bhagavatam, Srila Prabhupada, he said, for 7 days, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, he's giving lecture to Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu on Vedanta Sutra. But then Mahaprabhu didn't say anything. So Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, he's not foolish, he understands. That means if he's continuously speaking for 7 days and you didn't say anything, that means something else is in your mind. So he asked Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, what are you thinking? Is there anything you don't understand? Maybe I can more explain. But then Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he said, oh, actually the Vedanta Sutra itself, written by Srila Vyasadeva, is very, very clear, like the midday sun is shining, like midday sun is so powerful, so clear. But your interpretation, your explanation is like a cloud covering this sun. And this cloud is your own imagination. And Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he told Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, he said, if anyone thinks he's more intelligent than Srila Vyasadeva, then he's foolish, completely foolish. Then we should submissively accept the message coming from our parampara, from Krishna, from Srila Vyasadeva, from Srila Prabhupada. And then we can fulfill the worship to Vyasadeva. Because in Chaitanya Bhagavat, in the Madhya Kanda, chapter 5, in the verse 8, this chapter is mentioning about Lord Nityananda's Vyasa Puja. So Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he gave us a clear definition of what is Vyasa Puja. He said, Vyasa Puja is the worship to Vyasadeva, and then there are so many representatives in our parampara. So we start from worshiping our spiritual masters. And then Vyasa Puja, this word has another meaning, means Sri Guru Padma Padme. I forgot the technical part. I think this Sri Guru Pada Padme Padyarpan. That means you have to use 5 different ingredients to wash the lotus feet of your spiritual master. And this action itself signifies the spiritual master has an inner desire. He has an inner desire to serve the pastimes of Lord Shri Shri Radha and Krishna. And therefore, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he quotes in that purport, he quotes that our primary guru, he said, Srila Narottam Das Thakur, he wrote a song like a prayer to Srila Rupa Goswami. We may chant this almost every day. Shri Chaitanya Manopistam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupaka Dhamayam Dadati Swapadam Tikam. Srila Rupa Goswami Prabhupada, he established in this material world the mission of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu when he would give me the shelter of his lotus feet. So in this mood, we pray to all our gurus. We pray to all the acharyas in our disciplic succession that the best service and the best worship we can do to Srila Vyasadeva, to our guru, is to fulfill the desires of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And we have to give this message. We have to spread the love of Krishna all over the world. That is best worship. And at the end, please allow me to borrow one prayer from Sri Prahlad Maharaj to Srila Nrsimhadev as our submission, our prayer to our gurus, to Srila Prabhupada, all the previous acharyas, up to Srila Vyasadeva. The beautiful prayer comes from 7th Canto, Chapter 9, verse 28. Evam janam nipatitam prabhavahi kupe karma bhikama manuyat prapatam prasanga kritvat masa surashina bhagavan pragrihita soham katam nu rishije tavabhitya sevam. Oh my dear Lord, Supreme Personality of Godhead, because of my association with material desires, one after another, I am falling into a dark well full of snakes. But your servant, Narada Muni, accepted me as his disciple and instructed me how to achieve this transcendental position. And therefore, my first duty is to serve him. How can I give up my service unto him? Hare Krishna. Thank you for your patience. So there's a few minutes left. I'm now inviting any comments, corrections, and questions. We have mic here.
Thank you very much for such an eloquent and powerful lecture. The three yugas, it means as Dwapara Yuga begins, it begins at the last 10% of Treta, and as it finishes, it's the first 10% of Kali Yuga. Is that what you're saying? Is that what it means?
The last part of Dwapara Yuga is overlapping the beginning part of Treta Yuga. So it's almost like a sequence. That's what Bhanu Maharaj mentioned, because he said usually the other translators, when they translate this part, they simply says as a passing of the yugas one after another. So it's like the last part of Dwapara Yuga overlapping the beginning part of Treta Yuga. Only that part is overlapping. It is not that completely the Treta Yuga is jumping in front of the Dwapara Yuga.
So that means Satya Yugas overlap in Treta Yuga also?
That means Satya Yuga is overlapping the second Yuga, Dwapara Yuga.
Satya, yeah.
Satya Yuga, the first Yuga.
No, Treta Yuga is before.
Treta Yuga is the third Yuga.
Yeah. So Satya Yuga wouldn't overlap Treta.
Satya Yuga,
Dwapara, sorry.
No, Satya Yuga only the last part overlapping the beginning of Dwapara Yuga.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Mataji, I have a question regarding this overlapping. I want to understand, what does that mean technically? Does that mean that qualities of the previous yuga are manifesting at the time when the next yuga should be starting? When he's saying overlapping, is it explicit, like practical expression, or is it talking about like a small metaphorical sense? For example, let's say in Satya Yuga people are not meant to be pure, in Kali Yuga people are impure. So if during the time when it's supposed to be Satya Yuga, some impurities connected to Kali Yuga manifest, is that what it means by this overlapping, or is it just according to the calculations that numbers are just mixing? what does it mean, overlapping, practically speaking? Would you be able, I don't know, I'm not very intelligent. Maybe you could elaborate on that.
Hare Krishna, thank you for your question. I try to explain. We can give an example, like the morning time, the best time for us to chant morning Gayatri is when the night is becoming the day, but it is not exactly like the previous second is completely pitch dark and then the next second is completely like bright. There is some kind of like a in-between period. You cannot say exactly it's night and you cannot say exactly it's the day. It's the conjunction. It is this part. So this is like the overlapping of the end of the night and the beginning of the day. So then we apply this example into our understanding of the different yogas and the overlapping Satya Yoga, the qualities and the duration of their lives is also become like this. Like in Satya Yoga, the people's, their longevity is like 100,000 years. And then in the next yoga, in Durpa Yoga, people's life becomes 10,000 years. And so at the end of Satya Yoga, when it's overlapping at the beginning of Durpa Yoga, people's life is like become less than 100,000 years, but it's more than 10,000 years. Also the qualities, their cleanliness, their purity, like a gradually like a dwindling, and like this, I hope. Yes? Yes. Thank you, because it is that's why we say yoga. According to Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he divides the 3 periods of each millennium, each yoga, into three yogas. Yoga means like connect, and then so the first part, they said this is a Sunday yoga. And then the middle part is Rupa Yoga. Rupa Yoga is the main part, 80%. And the last part is Sandhyamsha Yoga, the last 10%. Last 10% is overlapping the first 10% of next yoga. This one, about this. This part you can find in Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's commentary. Thank you.
Krishna, Mataji. I have a small question. Mataji, why is this overlapping of millennium is happening in 28 Chatur Yoga? Is it because Krishna is descending in that yoga? Here Prabhupada mentions in the purport. Is there any other pastime? Because I heard some other senior devotee in my place that Prabhu mentioned about Ahalya. Because of pure devotion of Ahalya, to remove the curse of Ahalya, the Treta Yuga. Actually, I heard that it was shifted, but just now I am hearing for the first time. It was not shifted and it's a continuation, it just overlapped. So can you give me some?
Thank you for bringing up this point so we can have more clarification on this part. Because actually I asked Brijam Prabhu about these questions. And then that's why he told me, he said, you should stick to the purport. He said it is not mentioned in the purport and it is not, this is his original words. He said this is not the main points of the purport, so he said you should stick to the purport. So if it didn't mention why, and then you no need to understand why. So I am simply repeating whatever I heard. Thank you. Sorry, I don't have the intelligence to answer this question. We only know that Krishna also appeared. Maybe we can think, is it very special? But didn't say, then that is not the main points of the purport. And also we can think about Banu Maharaj's answer again and again. Because when you meditate those answers, first you'll hear and then you have to do this mamana. Mamana you have to meditate and then the meaning becomes more manifested in your heart. The more like meditation, then you can understand. Banu Maharaj says, why the other commentators, why the other translators, when they're translating the original text of this special shlok, they even didn't mention this overlapping. why they didn't mention? Because they don't want to give some confusion, and they simply said, as the passing of the yugas, as the passing of the ages. So the part we should focus on, it is not that it is something special. Actually, this is natural. Naturally, when the night becomes day, when the morning becomes afternoon, when the afternoon becomes night, naturally there is a gradual process of evolving into the next phase of time. So these 4 yugas is the same. Naturally, there is a natural overlapping of the last part of the previous yuga and the beginning part of this next yuga. And it happens that Krishna appears in Dwapara Yuga, and also every Vyasadeva also appeared in this in every Dwapara Yuga at the same time. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Then thank you again for everyone. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.